Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel, where I share tips and tricks on how to use Azure, the cloud platform from Microsoft. In this video, I will show you how to create and manage Azure subscriptions and regions, which are essential for using Azure services. What are Azure subscriptions and regions? Azure subscriptions and regions are two concepts that you need to understand before you start using Azure. They are related to how you access and pay for Azure services, and how you optimize the performance and availability of your cloud resources. An Azure subscription is an agreement between you and Microsoft that gives you access to Azure services. You can use your subscription to create and manage Azure resources, such as virtual machines, web apps, databases, and more. You can also use your subscription to pay for the Azure services that you use, either on a pay-as-you-go basis or with a reserved. I'm going to focus on the module number 2, and it deals with the concept of administering and/or administer governance and compliance. So as I mentioned, firstly, two things we have to understand. One is Azure is the cloud service, public cloud service. So Microsoft has prepared the underlying physical infrastructure. They are allowing us to use that infrastructure, so we are treated as the Microsoft tenant. But when we are trying to use their resources, their infrastructure, we have to pay them a certain amount of money. And to pay that, we need to take a subscription. And another thing is, in different countries, the government, as well as all the companies themselves, they will have some compliance and governance requirement. So, depending on the country where I am, and depending on the company for which I am working, we'll have to ensure that we are following those as well. So, in this case, what we are going to do in this module, we are going to explore that. Not only that, this module will give us an understanding of the logical as well as the physical infrastructure of the Azure cloud. So here in this module, we have 3 lessons to discuss. Firstly, configure the subscription. Secondly, configure that as your policies. And the thirdly, configured role-based access control. So when we are focusing on the first point, configuring the Azure subscription. So definitely, before we could focus on the Azure subscription, we'll first understand the logic physical as well as the logical architecture of Azure cloud. Then we'll focus on subscription, how to get the subscription, how to use that subscription, how to identify that, for which particular purpose I am using which subscription, how much money I am spending, all those things, and how to implement the cost management. We'll discuss that about. Resource tagging is very, very important with respect to the costing. Many a time what happens, let me just give you a simple example, that in a large enterprise, always, we have 2 environments, production environment and distant development environment. You want to track separately that how much money you are spending for your production environment and how much money you are spending for your test and development environment. So, while creating the resources, if you are putting a tab like production or the test and development, for you, it becomes very easy to locate those resources, query those resources using the tab, and then figure out exactly how much money you are spending for that purpose. So we are going to focus on that as well. And Azure itself has a tool called the Azure Advisor, which helps us with keeps us recommendation. So we could save a lot of cost in that case as well, and how to save the cost. We'll discuss about that also. So firstly, when I'm talking about the physical as well as the logical architecture of the Azure cloud, so basically, what happens? The entire Azure cloud is made up of regions. So what is the region basically? A region is the location on the planet Earth. What Microsoft tries to do, that they try to procure some huge amount of land somewhere in any country, any place, and on that area or on that land, they try to build at least one, but potentially multiple data center which should be connected to each other. Like typically, the methodology which Microsoft follows, that they try to build 3 data centers, very close to each other, and then try to interconnect those data centers to each other for fault tolerance and resources availability of resources. So such kind of environment or such kind of establishment is called a region. That means and as your region points to a location on the planet R where Microsoft has deployed at least one but potentially multiple interconnected data center to provide us the Azure services, and it is possible that in the same geographical area, Microsoft might build multiple region also. When we talk about geographical area, primarily we try to mean a particular country. Or if we take the example of India, in India, Microsoft has built 3 regions. Central India, where the headquarter which is basically based on Pune, Western India, which is based on Mumbai, and South India, which is based on the, say, manual. Similar to India, countries which are bigger than India, like the US and China. In such countries also, you could find multiple as your region. Like in US, you have many region if you were West US, South Central US, North Central US, and so on. East US 2, West US 2, and so on. Similarly, China, or China South, then China East China is 2. So you have those regions in there. Similarly, in case of UA, you have UA North, UAE Central. So you have multiple regions there. So a region typically is made up of multiple data center. And those data centers, all of them, are independent. They have their own resources. They have their own power supply cooling, system, compute network, storage independently. They can provide us all the services. But to make the services all tolerant, those data centers are interconnected. So by connecting multiple data centers to each other, Microsoft is trying to ensure that if one data center fail, still we have the access to the resources and we are getting the services uninterruptedly. So being tenants or customers, we are not facing any issue. But what if there is a natural calamity like, say, flood, earthquake, or say, cyclone, or maybe there is a huge outrage like a power failure, or maybe a fire outlet. So in that scenario, excuse me, it is quite natural that an entire Azure region can become inaccessible for a certain period of time. And if the entire Azure region is inaccessible for a particular period of time, when the customers who have deployed their resources on that particular region, they will not be able to access their resources. And their network infrastructure will be completely in a standstill position and their productivity will suffer. So to take care of that, what Microsoft tries to do, that they try to build a pairing between regions at your regions. And what they try to follow is a golden rule that they try to pair 2 regions with each other within the same geographical area and typically try to maintain a distance of 300 miles. But where that is not possible, excuse me, where that is not possible. So that distance could be more or could be less also. Like, if we take the example of India, South India is paired with Central India and also paired with West India. But you friends can easily understand Tune and Bangalore. They are not 300 miles apart from each other. It is more than that. Same thing applied to Mumbai. Mumbai and Bangalore, they are not, say, 300 miles apart from each other. It is more than that. But it is a golden rule. It is not a hard and fast rule. Microsoft tries to follow that, but the rule that they focus more on is the 2 paired regions should be within the same geographical area. Like in our case, South India is paired with Central India. South India is also paired with Western India. So they are within the same geographical region, same country India. And there is only one exception to this arrangement, that is the Brazil South region. Brazil is a country that belongs to South Africa, which is paired with South Central US, which belongs to North America. Except that for all other region and their paired region, Microsoft follows that methodology that 2 paired regions would be within the same geographical area. And definitely by pairing to region, now we are getting a fault tolerance that even if there is an outrage, like say, if there is an earthquake, flood, or cyclone in one of the region, the resources, because of the paired region, the resources can go over to the filled paired region, and as customers at tenant, we can continue to use those resources, and we can continue to have uninterrupted service for us. Therefore, it is providing us flexibility. And sometimes it may happen that when two regions are paired, so the resources that they have, they can be treated like a pool of resource, and they can be used by the tenant for scaling their resources as well. Data residency, because whenever you store any data in one of the Azure region, because of the underlying infrastructure, and also when you are trying to store your data, you are given the opportunity to select which methodology you are going to use, but it ensures that your data will be replicated to multiple as your region. Therefore, if there is an outrage in one region, still, you are able to access your data without having any problem. So far as the user is concerned, user always tries to tick 3 boxes. Firstly, the service that I am looking for, that service must be available in the region that I am trying to select. Secondly, the cost of that service or cost of that resource must be lowest in that region. Thirdly, the region geographically should be nearest to me, so I face the least amount of network latency. But there will be many cases where ticking all these 3 boxes is not possible for any user at all. So in such scenario, what happens? User first focuses, gives a priority that the service that I am looking for, the resource that I am looking for, must be available in the region that I'm selecting. Second priority should be the cost of the resource. Hard priority should be the geographical distance. Although as a golden rule, you always try to select the region which is nearest to you. So obviously those are the points that you need to remember. And at the same time, you should also remember there are certain Azure services which are treated as global services. That means they are available in any Azure region. You'll select as your Active Directory, as your DNA, as your Traffic Manager. Those are some examples of global services. In select any Azure region, those services are available in those regions. Certain services are treated as regional services, like Network Watcher, then the Application Gateway. Those field services are only available on a few regions, and not all as your region, so they are called the regional services. So before deploying a particular service, you can take the help of docs.microsoft.com, from where you can come to know that, okay, this is a global service or this is the regional service. So that is why for creating any resource, my Azure subscription is working as a boundary. Similarly, as a global administrator, when I'm trying to perform any administrative task, like creating any resource, modifying any resource, removing any resource. Again, the highest level at which I can perform those tasks is my subscription level. So my subscription is not only my billing boundary, or it is my resource boundary, but also it is the administrative boundary for me inside, which I can perform the administrative task as well. So to keep the resources separate, to keep the administrative permission separate, to keep the billing separate, we are taking different subscription for different purposes. Although all those subscription could be associated to a single account, because I want that person to be the single point of contact for any billing information related to Azure, how to get the subscription, multiple ways that there. One of the easiest way for large enterprises is to directly approach Microsoft through their website and sign up an enterprise agreement. Because for large enterprises, Microsoft had few plans. That okay? You are Santec. So you are handling. You have quite a few hundred of thousands of users. Therefore, you need so much of resources. So if you want this amount of resources from us, you will need to pay this amount to us on a yearly basis. So basically, in this case, what happened, it is not only about, say, the payment being made yearly. The key point here being the payment must be made in advance, or in technical term, it is called upfront commitment or upfront payment. That means Santec decides to sign up an enterprise agreement with Microsoft. It will be decided, okay, yearly you have to pay us this amount of money. And that money, it still has to pay in advance. And there are two types of scheme. which Microsoft offers. You can pay the money for 1 year in advance. You can pay the money for 3 years in advance. Now what Microsoft will provide us, because, say in lieu of that, firstly, they will provide us a service level agreement of 95%. That means all the resources allocated to Sandtech should be available for 99.95% of the time. And if a Microsoft highlights that Sandtech have full right to claim financial charges from them as well. Second option, what you are getting, it is also referred to as reserved instances because you are paying the money in advance. So the amount of resource which is decided as part of the agreement, Microsoft will keep those amount resources reserved for you. Whether you use it or not, it is up to you, but Microsoft will keep those resources reserved for you. They will not allocate those resources to any other tenant at all. What will be the third benefit? Third benefit will be the charge of individual resources will be lesser. Like say, I am an user who has taken a free subscription, or maybe I am an user who might have been using a Azure sponsorship pass like the one that have been shared with you. And you guys, or your Sandtech, you have got the enterprise agreement. You have paid the money in advance. Suppose I am trying to deploy a virtual machine. So when you try to deploy the same virtual machine, Microsoft will charge you less amount of money than me because your money is there with us, and you have paid in advance. So for large enterprises, enterprise agreement is the best option, and typically by going through the Microsoft website and a large enterprise can take an enterprise example. For small to medium-sized organization who might fill enterprise agreement is not something which is suitable for us. They can purchase open license from the Microsoft reseller. Like in your hometown, you might be familiar that there are certain, say, let me call them shops. There might be some soft which you go when you need to purchase the Microsoft software, like you want to purchase a SQL server, you want to purchase a Windows server or Windows 10 operating system. So there are certain companies or there are certain shops in your hometown. So they are called the resellers. So partly they are purchasing from Microsoft and then they are selling to us. So you can approach them. You can tell them that I want to purchase, say that as your subscription. And this is what they call open licensing. So just like the promo code that I shared with you, they will share a code with you depending on your requirement, and using that code, you'll be able to take the subscription from Microsoft also. Resellers could be one more option that you can work with. For individuals, one of the easier way is to go for the personal free account, where all you need is to have a phone number and a credit card number. Do you start by entering your credit card number? And the credit card number will be used only to verify your identity. If you are entering the information that I am Sachin. Therefore, your phone number and credit card number both will be used for verifying your identity. In Indian currency, they will charge you only 2 rupees and ask you to approve that transaction. And once you approve that transaction of 2 rupees, your personal free account will be created, and within 24 hours, Microsoft will return that 2 rupees to you, because all they wanted to know that if you are indeed Sachin, and if that credit card number and phone number both belongs to you, you'll be able to approve that transaction of 2 rupees. And because by approving the transaction of 2 rupees, you prove that you are indeed Sachin. Therefore, they are returning that 2 rupees to you because you are going for a free subscription, whereas in some countries, we have some challenges. Particularly in the country of China, everybody have lots and lots of challenges. In China, what they are doing, they're using the name of Microsoft Azure. But actually, there is a company called 21 FireNet, who have signed up an agreement who are treated as the cloud partner for Microsoft. So in the entire country of China, what they are doing on behalf of Microsoft, 21 Vietnam is building the infrastructure. They are providing the service to everyone in China on behalf of Microsoft, and they are using the name, like as your region, China East, as your region, China East 2, but it is actually that company called 21 Barnet, who is a cloud partner of Microsoft. They are providing the service. And actually, in China, if you want to take as your subscription, you'll have to approach that company. You cannot directly upload Microsoft. So such kind of cloud partners are also there from whom we can get a subscription. So how you are going to use and with which type of, say, subscription, what you are going to get. So as you could see, that when you are using your credit card number to take a free subscription, Microsoft gives you a credit of $200. And for the first 30 days, you can deploy any result, you can work with any result, and the money will be deducted from that $200. After the $200 are spent, or 30 days have passed, whichever comes earlier, free access will be given to a few resources, like Azure Active Directory, as your traffic manager, as your DNS for 12 months. After that, you will not be able to access anything unless you renew your subscription. Pay as you go, it is a good option for small to medium organization and also people who are beginners in the cloud world, because it is just like a monthly billing cycle. You use the results. And then, at the end of the month, Microsoft will send you the bill. You have to pay that amount. Now, basically, what happens here, you are using the resource first, and later you are paying. That is why pay as you go is the most costly subscription that you have. Because for each of the resources, because you are using it first and then paying to Microsoft charge a heavy amount for, or Microsoft charges, say, comparatively higher amount for the pay-as-you-go model than cloud service provider. So as I mentioned to you, like in China, you don't have any choice. You have to go to 21 via net, only because you know how China is. Therefore, in that particular country, you have to go to the cloud service provider, and to them only you are able to take the subscription. And there also, you tell them that this is my requirement. It is kind of an enterprise agreement, but because they are not the owner, they are partners of Microsoft. That is why they are called the cloud service provider. Enterprise agreement, we have understood. Some organization, they have a business tie-up with Microsoft. And any user or anyone, when they enroll to those educational institute, they are given an official mail ID. Like, for example, say, Santosh at Oxford University.edu. So if you are able to verify your identity with such kind of an email address, typically you can understand the process. You enter the email address. They will send a verification link to that email address. And if you are able to verify that link, that means you have verified that you are indeed Santosh, who have enrolled to Oxford Universities for his studies, and Oxford Universities because they have a business tie-up with Microsoft. So being a student of Oxford University, Microsoft gives you the student plan, where you are given $100 and 12 months of time to use that $100. Within that 12 month, you can use that $100 for any resource, you can deploy any result, and you can work with them. So that is how you are going to get the subscription, and that is how you are going to use the subscription. Now, cost management and cost analysis. This is a very important task for any cloud administrator. So, basically, what happens when you explore your own subscription? On that subscription, you have the opportunity to firstly view the cost of the resources that you have been using. Secondly, you have the opportunity to create a budget and alert. And you also have the opportunity to export that data to comma-separated value files and other Power BI chart as well. And there is a tool called Azure Advisor, where Azure gives you the recommendation that if you are using the resources like this, then you'll be able to save a lot of money. So how to work with this first log into the portal with the credential of a global admin. And then using this search box, search for subscription. So as you could see that here I have this subscription, MSDN, Microsoft Digital Network. That is also one type of subscription, but it is not for commercial use. Basically, Microsoft gives this type of subscription to people who are actually associated to Microsoft in some ways. For example, if someone is having a Visual Studio subscription, developer very often take a Visual Studio subscription. Or if someone has earned Microsoft certification, like a trainer. So as I mentioned, I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. So for people like us, Microsoft provide us this MSDN subscription as well. And the advantage that we get with this subscription is, every month, Microsoft will give us $100 of credit to deliver our training. So whenever I am demonstrating anything to you, I am deploying some resources. And for those resources, whatever might be the cost, Microsoft will deduct from that $100. But being a Microsoft certified printer, I need not to pay that $100 to Microsoft. Microsoft themselves are giving me that $100. And from that $100, they are deducting the charges of the resources because I have to deliver the training on behalf of Microsoft. So developers who take the Virtual Studio subscription for them also, the MSG subscription, is also available. So as you could see for me, the MSDN subscription is there. Fine. You can explore your own subscription. You'll find that your sponsorship subscription, they are under the cost management. But if you explore this blade, cost analysis, you will find that whatever resources you have deployed, and what was the cost depending on the individual resources, let the it populate, like you can see for me, whatever information you could get. And see what happens here is basically that depending on the service or resources for which resource I was charged, how much money it will populate very soon. Now, whenever I try to deploy any Azure result, I have to select it as your region. So region-wise, how much will be how much money I have cost. Like, see here, what happened? You could see that for Azure Firewall, I was charged rupees to 47. Similarly, for VPN gateway storage and all different type of resources, I was charged this amount of money. So this analogy is based on the type of the resources. Now the same information when I deployed the Azure Firewall, I deployed in one of the Azure region. So in which region I actually deployed it, depending on that region-wise, it will give me a breakup also. So it might happen. It might have happened. Like I deployed the dual firewall, I deployed my VPN gateway, I deployed my virtual machine, I deployed all of them in the same region. So region Y, so you could see maybe 75% of my cost was based on a single region, whereas when we will be deploying the resources, we'll have to configure something called a resource group as well. So with respect to the resource group also, that analysis can be found out. They are not different information. It is the same information. It is the same amount of money that I spent. It has been given to me. The information has been shared with me in different ways. So firstly, I can view that information. As you could see, it could be downloaded in the form of PNG file, picture file, Excel sheet, or CSV file. So you can keep that download and keep that to compare the one. Like to check last month, this was the past. This month, this is the past to compare between that and maybe to build a baseline like that. You can use that also. You can create a budget and alert. Like firstly, as I mentioned that every month, Microsoft gives me $100 of credit. So in Indian currency to $100 means approximately 7,000 rupees. So what I want, that I don't want to spend more than say 5,000 rupees. So I can create a budget. Not only that, when I am trying to create my budget, I have the opportunity that I can configure. It will send me alert that you have utilized maybe 50% of your budget or 60% of your budget. That will help me in a better way to track the practice. So how could we actually configure the budget and the alert? Let me delete this. 1. So when I'm trying to create a budget, I can add. Firstly, I'll have to select which subscription I'm going to use, so already I am in the property of the MSDN subscription. Therefore, I need not to select the subscription. I can filter like say based on the billing period or anything and so on. I can specify that also. So billing period may be which particular I can select that which particular period of time I want. So maybe from far of November 2023 till 30th of April. That could be a good option for me. So I have put that, and if any information is available, it will show me, like actually, between 1st of April and 30th of April, I have spent only 700 rupees. Now let me create the budget. So I'm giving the name like April budget. The billing month reset period is this from 1st November 2023 to actually say 30th November of 2023. What will be my budget? I know Microsoft will give me 7,000 rupees. So 5,000 is my budget because for emergency, like some sudden batches, some sudden training, or some sudden practices, I want to keep 2,000 rupees for me. So that will be my budget, fine. Now how the alert will be sent. So alert condition, I can specify, like when the actual spending is 80%. So if I have spent 80% of my budget, which is 4,000 rupees, so I can send the information to a group of users whom we call the action group. So what is the action group? How to create that group? We don't know that. That is why I'm going the simpler way. Like the condition remain the same, but alert will be sent to home, maybe this guy there, which is santech at hotmail.com. And also, you might put multi-IP address or multiple email address like that. Don't worry about this email because computer do not have bread. It wants me to type. Nothing else. Okay. You can click that. So my budget is created and the LRT is also created for that. So once this criteria is fulfilled, it will send me an email to my, say, mail ID that I have given. And furthermore, this as your advisor recommendation, it will help me that widget. If you follow this, then you actually can save a lot of money. But for the challenge for both you and me is to get the recommendation from the Azure advisor. We must purchase with the resources. Like, I'll deploy some resource and I'll keep it running for, say, motor, say, for 15 days, 20 days, 1 month, and so on. But typically, you will find when I'm guessing something with you after demonstrating the thing, I'll delete the result. And Microsoft will not charge you separately for the licenses. So that means what you call that as your hybrid benefit. That means you purchase the licenses for using in your on-prem data center. Now you have decided, Mike, to migrate your infrastructure to the cloud. So Microsoft is allowing you to use those resources, those licenses in the cloud, and not charging you anything for the licensing cost. By using that, you are saving further money. And practically, when you combine the two features, when you are able to combine the two features, like you have already taken an enterprise agreement, and you are able to use the Azure reservation, and you have already purchased the licenses which you are trying to use in the cloud by taking advantage of the hybrid benefit, you might be able to save the cost up to 80% compared to the pay as you go. Because as I mentioned earlier, pay as you